I destroyed my relationship with my boyfriend over a stupid, manipulative test, and now he's just gone. All right, Reddit, just tear me to shreds. I honestly think I need it. My stomach has been in this tight, sickening knot for 5 days, and I can't eat, I can't sleep. And all I do is replay the moment I torched my entire life. I 28F had the best man I've ever known. Zayn, 30 million, wasn't just a boyfriend. He was like the antidote to every bad thing I thought about myself. He was patient and kind in a way that felt unreal, you know? He was the guy who, after 2 years together, still made me coffee every single morning exactly how I like it. He was the safe harbor I never thought I'd find. And last Thursday, I took that safety and I weaponized it in the most disgusting, manipulative way possible. So please tell me I'm an idiot. I need to see it in black and white. To understand why I did what I did, you have to know about Liam. Liam was my college boyfriend, the first guy I ever really loved, and he completely gutted me. It wasn't just that he cheated, it was the way it ended. After 3 years, I found a single, casual text on his phone that unraveled everything. There was no big fight, no dramatic confrontation. When I showed it to him, he just gave this exhausted sigh, like I'd finally caught him, and he was almost relieved. He packed a bag and was gone in under an hour. The silence he left behind was a physical presence. It broke something fundamental inside me, you know. It installed this tiny, malicious voice in my head that became my life's narrator, constantly whispering, "See, nothing good lasts. Everyone leaves. The moment you get comfortable, the floor will drop out." When I met Zayn 2 years later, he was the complete opposite of that voice. He was consistent, he was honest. He was so incredibly present, it was almost unnerving. I told him all about Liam on one of our first dates, the whole ugly, pathetic story. I expected him to see me as damaged goods, but instead, he just listened. And then he spent the next 2 years patiently, lovingly proving that little voice in my head wrong. If he said he'd call at 8, my phone rang at 8 o'clock on the dot. He learned my anxieties, my triggers. If I got quiet and distant, he wouldn't get angry. He'd gently ask, "Hey, where'd you go?" and wait for me to come back. He was slowly, painstakingly, rebuilding the trust Liam had demolished. But here's the sickest part, the part I can't explain to anyone. The better he was, the louder that malicious voice got. The more he proved he was trustworthy, the more I felt like I was being set up for a fall 100 times worse than the one with Liam. It was a constant, low-grade panic. This can't be real. It's a setup. He's just better at hiding it. My brain was running a toxic script, searching for the flaw, the crack, the inevitable betrayal. I started to feel this twisted, desperate need to poke it, to create a crisis just to see if he'd stay. It was like I had to prove the voice right, to confirm my deepest fear, because the anxiety of waiting for the other shoe to drop was becoming more unbearable than the drop itself. God, I know how insane that sounds. He was giving me everything I ever wanted, and my broken brain was just looking for a way to burn it all to the ground. Last Thursday started out so normal, perfect, even. Zayn was in the kitchen making his signature pasta sauce. The whole apartment smelled like garlic and basil. He had music playing softly, one of those indie playlists he loves, and he was humming along. I was leaning against the doorframe, just watching him, feeling this overwhelming wave of love and gratitude. It was one of those simple, perfect moments that felt like a glimpse into our future. He turned around, spatula in hand, with that easy smile of his. "Hey," he said, "I was thinking, maybe we should finally plan that trip for me to meet your parents. Maybe that long weekend next month." It should have made me happy. It should have been exciting. But instead, it was like a switch flipped in my brain. The warm, loving feeling vanished, replaced by ice-cold dread, meeting the parents. A real solid, this is serious step. And the malicious little voice in my head started screaming. "It's a trap. He's making you feel secure so it hurts more when he leaves. He's going to get in with your family, and then he'll detonate everything." It was so loud, so convincing. And then, the most awful, disgusting idea I've ever had slid into my mind. It felt like it came from somewhere else, some dark, ugly corner of my soul. Test him, see what he does, see if he's for real. I needed to see a crack in his perfect facade. I needed him to reassure me in a way that felt earned through crisis. I mumbled something about needing fresh air and slipped out onto the balcony, pulling the glass door almost shut, leaving just enough of a gap. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and actually dialed my mom's number. She picked up on the second ring. I didn't give her a chance to talk. I took a deep breath, forced a tremor into my voice, and made myself sound like I was on the verge of tears. "Mom," I whispered, loud enough to carry. "Yeah, I'm okay. It's just, I'm so scared." I paused, pinching the bridge of my nose, a perfect picture of manufactured distress. What if the person I've chosen disappoints me again? What if I'm making another huge mistake? My mom, bless her innocent heart, didn't play along with some vague script I had in my head. Her voice, tinny through the phone but clear enough for him to hear from the doorway, was pure confusion. "Honey, what are you talking about? Did something happen with Zane?" He heard it. He heard his name. The sound of it in that context just sucked all the air out of the space between us. I slowly lowered the phone, my stupid, fake tears drying instantly. I turned. He was standing right there, the music from the kitchen suddenly sounding horribly loud and cheerful. The look on his face, God, I will see that look in my nightmares for the rest of my life. It wasn't anger. Not at first. It was a flicker of confusion, then dawning, sickening comprehension. Then a wave of hurt so profound it was like I had physically struck him. And finally, nothing. Just a flat, cold emptiness. The warmth in his eyes, the warmth I had basked in for 2 years, just switched off. It was like watching a light go out. The silence that followed was worse than any fight we'd ever had. It was heavy, suffocating. He didn't yell, he didn't demand an explanation. He just stood there, the wooden spatula still in his hand, looking at me like I was a complete stranger. Like he was seeing me for the very first time, and he didn't like what he saw. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was terrifyingly calm. It was the voice you use with a dangerous animal you don't want to startle. "So?" he said, and the single word was so loaded with disappointment it made my knees feel weak. "That's what this is to you, a test." It wasn't a question. It was a conclusion. He turned around without another word, walked back into the kitchen, and I heard the clatter of the spatula as he dropped it into the sink. Then the sound of the burner clicking off. He walked past me, not even looking in my direction, went into our bedroom and shut the door. Not a slam, just a soft, final click. That click was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I stood frozen on the balcony for what felt like an hour, my phone still clutched in my hand, my mom's confused, "Malia. Hello?" buzzing against my palm before I finally hung up. My stupid, manipulative plan had worked, I guess. I'd created a crisis. And now I was standing in the wreckage, my heart hammering against my ribs with pure, undiluted panic. This wasn't what I wanted. I wanted him to rush out to hold me to say, "Of course not, I'll never leave you." I wanted reassurance. Instead, I had this terrible, echoing silence. I slept on the couch. Or rather, I lay on the couch all night, staring at the ceiling, replaying his face, that look of utter betrayal, over and over again. I kept expecting the bedroom door to open, for him to come out and for us to have the fight, the big, messy, tearful fight that would lead to making up. But the door never opened. When my alarm went off the next morning, the apartment was still silent. I crept to the bedroom. He was gone. His side of the bed was made perfectly. His work clothes were gone. I told myself it was fine. He just went to work early to avoid me. We'd talk tonight. I'd apologize. I'd explain. I spent the whole day at work rehearsing my apology, a long, rambling speech about my past and my fears. I was going to fix it. But when I got home that evening, the wrongness hit me the second I walked in the door. It was too tidy, too empty. I walked into the bedroom, my heart pounding. His side of the closet was bare. All his shirts, his jeans, his sweaters, gone. I ran to the bathroom. His toothbrush wasn't in the holder. His shaving cream, his cologne, his stupidly expensive face wash I always made fun of him for, all gone. He hadn't just left for the day. He had moved out, quietly, efficiently, and without a single word. He had just evaporated from my life. The panic that set in was primal. It was a raw, animalistic fear. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent a text. "Zane, please call me. We need to talk. I am so sorry." The little delivered receipt popped up, but that was it. No read. Nothing. I checked WhatsApp. He'd been online an hour ago. I sent another message. Please, I know I messed up. I know it was a horrible thing to do. Please just let me explain. One gray check mark. He'd blocked me. My mind was racing. I went to Instagram to send a DM. I typed his name into the search bar. User not found. Blocked. Facebook, same thing. It was a systematic, silent, and brutally efficient erasure. In the span of a few hours, he had surgically removed me from every possible avenue of communication. I was spiraling, choking on the silence. I needed to hear a voice, any voice that could make sense of the nightmare I'd created. I called Jessica, our mutual friend, the one who introduced us. I was sobbing so hard I could barely get the words out. And God, I hate myself for this, but I spun the story. I didn't tell her the raw, ugly truth. I framed it as a moment of weakness. A stupid, insecure comment I'd made to my mom that he'd overheard and completely overreacted to. I was still trying to paint him as the unreasonable one, me as the victim of my own silly anxiety. I was hoping she'd say, "Oh, he's just being dramatic. He'll cool off. Let me talk to him." Jessica listened to my whole tearful, self-serving monologue without interrupting. When I finally finished, the line was quiet for a long, heavy moment. I thought maybe the call had dropped. "Jess," I whispered. Her voice, when it came, was flat, devoid of the sympathy I was so desperately seeking. "Malia," she said, and her tone was so serious it sent a fresh chill down my spine. "Are you kidding me? You tested him." "It wasn't like that," I started, but she cut me off. "No, stop. Just stop talking for a second and listen. Do you have any idea what his ex, Olivia, put him through? The woman he was with before you." I mumbled that I knew it was a bad breakup. "A bad breakup?" Jessica's voice was sharp now, laced with an anger I'd never heard from her before. "Malia, she didn't just cheat on him. She lied to him for 2 years. About everything. Money, where she was, who she was with. She made him feel like he was insane, like he was the controlling, paranoid one forever questioning her. She manipulated him, she played these insane mind games. When he finally found out the extent of it, it almost broke him. The one thing Zayn cannot tolerate is being played. He needs honesty like he needs air to breathe. He told me once that he would rather hear the ugliest truth than the prettiest lie. She took a breath, and I could hear her trying to control her frustration. "So no, Malia, he's not overreacting. You didn't just have a moment of weakness. You found his deepest, most painful wound, the one you promised to help heal, and you poured salt all over it just to see if he'd flinch. What the hell did you expect to happen?" Jessica's words were like a physical blow. They knocked all the air out of my lungs and all the self-serving excuses out of my head. For the first time, I saw my actions not through the fog of my own anxiety, but through his eyes. He hadn't just heard his girlfriend expressing doubt. He'd witnessed a calculated, manipulative performance designed to test his loyalty. He'd seen the ghost of his ex, Olivia, standing on my balcony. The next few days were a blur of pathetic, desperate attempts to undo the damage. I was completely unhinged. I wrote him long, rambling emails, pouring out everything. My fears, the story about Liam, how much I loved him, how I knew I was a monster. They all went into the void, unanswered. I even drove by his office building during his lunch break, sitting in my car like a pathetic stalker, just hoping to catch a glimpse of him. I saw him once, walking out with a coworker, and he was laughing. Laughing. The sight of it felt like a knife in my chest. How could he be laughing when my world was ending? I was cleaning up the apartment one night, or rather, just moving piles of my own misery from one surface to another, when I started clearing off the bookshelf in the living room. It was a shelf we'd built together. He had a small stack of books there he'd finished reading. As I picked them up to dust, a small, folded receipt fluttered out from between the pages of a history book he'd been raving about. I picked it up. It was from a local, independent jeweler downtown, a place known for unique, custom engagement rings. The date on the receipt was from 3 weeks ago. It was a deposit slip for a custom-designed ring. My stomach dropped. I unfolded it completely. In the notes section, the jeweler had handwritten a few details. I saw the words "pear cut" and "vintage-inspired band." The exact style I'd pointed out on Pinterest months ago and then completely forgotten about. And then, at the bottom, a little note, "Pickup scheduled for next Friday." That was the Friday after he left. The piece of paper trembled in my hand. This whole time, while I was nurturing my stupid, toxic doubts, convinced he was going to leave me, he was planning a future. He wasn't just meeting the parents. He was planning to propose. The test I had concocted wasn't just a test of his love. It was a final exam on our entire future, and I had failed it in the most spectacular way possible. I had destroyed not just what we had, but everything we were about to have. Holding that receipt, I did the only thing I could think of. I took a picture of it with my phone. I composed one final email. There was no more begging, no more excuses. I just attached the picture and wrote, "I know what I destroyed. I will regret it for the rest of my life. I hope one day you can be happy." A few days later, I got a reply. My heart leaped into my throat when I saw his name in my inbox. It was the first and only communication I'd received from him. I clicked it open, my hands shaking. The email contained a single sentence. "Malia, take care of yourself." That was it. No anger, no sadness, just polite finality. It was the bless your heart of breakups. It was the gentle, kind way of saying, "We are done and there is nothing left to say." And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that he meant it. It was truly, irrevocably over.